I don't know how I'm going to tell this story because there's so much to tell. My name is Tina Greer and today I'm going to be talking about my mum's murder. I haven't done a video in full explaining the story and yeah, what happened. Some background context. My mum went missing in 2012. So my mum, Tina Greer, was a 32-year-old woman who was murdered by her partner, Les Sharman. I'm gonna start off in December 2011. So my mum and I moved to a little granny flat in Richmond, Queensland, Australia. She had left, essentially. She had left him and we had started a new life. Long story short, I didn't live with my mum for about 5-6 years leading up to it. So it was this whole really intense custody battle, and the whole point of my life up until then was this goal of returning to my mum's care and living with her. Obviously, she knew it wasn't safe for me to live with her while she was in an abusive relationship at this man's house. So yeah, she left and we got our own place. First night of properly moving in, I didn't want to sleep alone because I was excited to live with my mum, was scared to sleep in a new room, all of those types of things. Mum had fallen asleep, but I was putting posters up all over this wall, and then I hear this and this tapping noise, but it was like a rhythm. I hear this and I think, oh, I'm being a silly little girl, and it just keeps going tap, 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 tap. So I wake my mum up and she hears it and we're like, what do we do? Call the upstairs neighbor. My mum screams out, says go away. That was the beginning of us being stalked. The entirety of where we lived in that house, we were stalked. This stalking started to occur where someone would come, rattle the windows, because we kind of had windows around the whole thing. So we had this little rock entryway pathway leading down to our house. They'd start at the kitchen and then they'd go around the side of the house, literally trying to move all the doors. What we were doing was we were sleeping during the daytime and staying awake at night because we felt safer that way. This continued to happen. The police were called. They told us that it was bush turkeys. Yeah, it started to get progressively more aggressive. When we had left the house, a car had been vandalized with paint thinner just poured all over it. Pot plants were being broken. Yeah, it was just getting more intense. In conjunction with all this stalking happening, my mum was in a really abusive relationship that she was trying to properly flee. Obviously, we had physically left, but these types of relationships, it's very hard to break ties. And just a background into this man, he was a Finks motorcycle gang member and very violent, to say the least. Whilst this was happening, he broke our door. So because we were tired, because we're humans, we were sleeping and she didn't answer the door. So this man broke our door, literally the lock. So we had to start barricading ourselves into our house at night because someone was stalking it. What's ironic is one night he actually stayed over to protect us. Obviously, no one stalked us that night. When I'm talking about this, it's also really strange because we actually were still really positive and excited about our lives. I was just about to start high school, so it was a really exciting time. We were super excited to decorate, all these small things. It was my mum's birthday. Her birthday's on the 26th of January. She went missing on the 18th of January. So there was a lot of stuff leading up to this she wouldn't have missed. At the beginning, they thought that she had run away. When people ask me if she ran away, it's no, you don't understand the hell that we went through to live together, and that she just was an amazing human that would never have left, despite all of the hardship that she went through. So on the 18th of January, we went school shopping. My friend, my mum and her mum. That afternoon, mum dropped me off and said she'll be back the next day to pick my friend and I up for another sleepover, but it was going to be at our house. She drives from Richmond or Canungra to Spices Gap, where his property is located. It's worth mentioning that this area is super remote and there's very few neighbours. It's very rural. She drives to his house. Then at 10:53, her phone calls one of her male friends. 2 calls that go for 10 to 12 seconds each one, but there's no one on the other line. It was just a dead line. I'm not sure if it was him being jealous that she had this man's number. I don't know. It's been found that neighbours saw a white ute driving down the road slowly with torchlights, followed by a woman calling out about 10 minutes later. The next day, she's supposed to come back to pick me up this never happens. And that was the last day I saw her. The 19th, he buys a new queen size mattress, literally like the next day. Like, can you make it more obvious, mate? So he buys this new queen size mattress. He's also seen in the morning getting these black plastic bags from a service station. On the same day, he claims that my mum had left his property at 9:30 in the morning. And it's funny because she wasn't due to pick me up until 5 p.m. that Thursday. And she didn't have any other plans that day other than to sand down the car so it didn't rust and do our washing. That was her plans. The thing about this is that although he claims that my mum left on the Thursday morning at 9:30, like cell towers pick up her phone in his property after 9:30. I believe it was like Thursday afternoon or the Friday that her phone is picked up inside his property lines. So where is she, right? Interestingly enough, Les was never formally interviewed by the police, but he claimed that they had a nice night, nothing, no altercations, just a nice evening together. Yet he buys a new queen size mattress. And it's also interesting is that he tells friends and family that my mum was complaining about this mattress, and he just decides coincidentally the first day that she goes missing to buy a new mattress. Then her car is spotted 7 kilometers away from his house at a dead end road at a lookout with all of her belongings, her wallet, her phone. Our washing is not done and the car is not done. What's also interesting is that to leave the property to get back to where I was to pick me up, she is supposed to turn right, but she turns left and goes down this road. The 20th of January, one of his friends goes and picks up the queen size mattress and some other waste and goes and disposes of it at Willawong dump. Sidebar, I don't even know if this dump was ever searched. Quite literally, I don't know. On the 21st of January, my mum is actually reported missing, and it's frustrating because I was so young. It was kind of out of my control as to when to report her missing, but she's reported missing 3 days later. A lot of opportunity was lost then as well. So all these things are happening. This man actually rocked up to where I was staying, where the group of us was supposed to be interviewed. He comes, he's like drunk, visibly upset, and he tells me, I'm not going to go with you guys to be interviewed. And I hated this man, to mind you. Like, I don't know, I should have been more scared, but I just was sick of seeing this man abuse my mum for years. So I was like, if you're not guilty, just come to the police station and talk to the police if you didn't do anything. He didn't go to the police station that night. I don't know if it was like an intimidation thing, but he actually visited where I was living a few times. Yeah, it's wild stuff. What's frustrating about the case, and what a lot of people ask me, is how do I know he murdered her? How do I know? Because it's literally documented by neighbours how abusive he was. So a few instances that make it very apparent that this was coming. One example is that he hit her with his car. He was trying to run her over with his car. People saw and they were concerned, made complaints to the police. The police then attend, and obviously she denies it because she has to go back and live with this man. Do you think that someone's going to literally say that this man's abusing me when he's standing right next to it? Like, it blows my mind how police can approach things. And as I said, this was such a rural area, so it needs to be quite extreme violence for people to be noticing. On a second occasion, they attend because she was running down the road with blood all over her. Again, the police attended and she blamed it on a mowing accident because this man is a really powerful person, or at least he makes her feel that he's very powerful. She doesn't know what to do and where to go and is literally going to be homeless. So she denies it. Another occasion, she called me saying that he's going to murder me. He's got guns buried in the backyard. I love you, goodbye. After that, I didn't hear from her for 3 days. I thought she was dead. Finally, she answered, and she had explained to me that she had like a head injury because he had hit her over the head with a bar stool. She had to clean up her own blood. So the Domestic Violence Death Review Board found 18 risk factors in their relationship. Prior threats to kill my mum, prior assaults with a weapon, prior hostage taking or forcible confinement. So he would actually lock my mum away in the unit and not let her leave. History of violence external to family by shaman. Access or possession to firearms. Spiky, really easy to get weapons. Prior attempts to isolate Tina. So Literally excluding physical isolation in the middle of bloody nowhere, I literally was one of my mum's only friends and her only support person, because an abuser can't isolate you from your daughter, right? He literally had me and one other person. He controlled most to all of my mum's daily activities. An example of this was, say she went out. The phone would just go off. And if she didn't answer, he would come to our house or to wherever she was. If she didn't answer the door, he literally broke it down. And following him breaking the door down, my mum, he was like so angry at my mum, he tried to drag her down the hallway in front of a 12-year-old and a 13-year-old girl to bash her. Obviously, I was with my mum, so I got in between them and was pulling my mum's hands, trying to stop him from dragging her down the hallway to bash her. And he like grabbed me and was like, fuck off, I'll bash your face in, or something like that. He threatened to harm children. That's just what I talked about. Thankfully, I came out of this physically unscathed. Okay, so my mum had fear of him, obviously. He's been abusing her for like 5 years. So prior destruction of our property, for instance, breaking the door when we didn't answer it, and the car. So police now believe that he vandalized the car and like the pot plants and stuff like that. Excessive behavior, obviously, and prior threats with a weapon. Oh, they're small. Excessive alcohol or drug use by Mr. Sharman. Sexual jealousy, and there's literally reports of my mum saying she had to hide numbers in like notebooks across different pages so he wouldn't find out that she had people's phone numbers. Like just full on extreme forms of abuse and coercive control. So actual impending separation. So with these types of relationships, she had broken off. He would call, threaten, come to the property, abuse. You don't just leave and it's done. Like these people don't stop until you're literally dead. They had a big age gap. So there was obviously like a power imbalance. Presence of stepchildren in the home, that's referring to me. I think that if I was with her, she probably wouldn't have been murdered that day. It sounds really bad, but it wouldn't have been that day, and it probably would have been another day when I wasn't with her. And them living in like the same house or previously living in the same house. So those are the 18 risk factors that were present in her relationship. Why do I know that this man murdered her? That's why. If you're a logical human, pretty easy to realize that it was him. So unfortunately, he died in 2018, 6 years after her going missing. Basically, her case was a missing persons case. It was a missing persons case for like 10 years, and they have still to this day never been able to find her body. We're coming into an inquest. It's going to be in August this year, and the goal of that is to find out where her body is, what happened with the police investigation, and what could have been done to prevent her death. So it's been a really long, hard, sad journey for the past 11 years, but that's her story and that's what happened.